From Nashville's WSM Radio, the original home of the Grand Ole Opry, this is a Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast.
Hey, it's Charlie Matos, and in this episode of our Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast, we visit with Lacy J. Dalton. This was recorded October the 21st of 2022. Lacy J was in town for the first time in a while. It was great to see her. It had been about a decade since she had joined us on Coffee, Country, and Cody. She would play the Grand Ole Opry. She would be honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Opry House that weekend as well at the Josie Awards. So a lot to chat about with our friend Lacy J. Dalton.
Coffee, Country, and Cody.
Noise on 16th Avenue.
Well, look, just a hillbilly girl with the blues sitting across from me over there. Lacy J. Dalton, what a pleasure.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. It's so good to see you. It's so good to be back here. This is my favorite time of year to be in Nashville, and I haven't been here. I haven't played a show here for about 20 years.
Well, you're headed to the Opry, so we're going to take care of that.
We're going to do that.
And you're headed down to Homestead Hall. We're going to take care of that.
Yeah,
you're a Lifetime Achievement Award winner at the upcoming Josie Awards at the Opry House this weekend.
This is a good weekend for us.
I was going to say, we saved up. It's been so long since you'd been here. But when you say this time of year, you grew up in the East. You grew up in Pennsylvania, didn't you?
I did. I grew up in a little town called Bloomsburg up on the Susquehanna River between Wilkes-Barre and Hazleton, and between Wilkes-Barre and the capital of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. Mm-hmm. And I haven't been back there for years and years and years. I went out to the west and I just stayed out there. I just went west. I belong out there.
In 2008, I was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame.
Congratulations on that.
The last time I saw you, you were visiting my neighbor, David Frizzell, in Cross Plains, Tennessee, my hometown, as we say. Cross Plains. In Cross Plains, we may not have what you want, but you can park free to look for it. And David was my neighbor. He has since moved. Randall and Paula Carr, who are dear friends of yours through the Mustang Makeover Project and the Wild Horse and Burro Center.
I'm so proud of the work they've done.
And you came and sat on the front porch of Thomas Drug Store, historic Thomas Drug, and played and sang that morning.
I remember it well. It was so beautiful to come out, and I loved being I just had a funny thing happen with David. We had a photograph taken together. It was when we were we were inducted into the International Hall of Fame, and I had a T-shirt on that said "Not Dead Yet." So we put that up as a remembrance, and we had all these hundreds and hundreds of hits on the website. Not for me or David. Everybody wanted the T-shirt "Not Dead Yet" that my manager Leslie Adams.
I hope you've added it to your merch table.
Actually we haven't, but it would be a really good idea. People love that T-shirt.
You make your home in a fascinating place, Virginia City, Nevada. There's also a Virginia City, Montana. Both are old mining towns. But Virginia City, Nevada was the setting for the Ponderosa and Bonanza.
It was.
And it kind of put it on the map as far as national prominence is concerned. How did a girl from Bloomsburg, PA, wind up making her home in Virginia City, Nevada?
Well, through the music business, I played out there in Reno and Lake Tahoe in all the casinos, and I would be out there for long periods of time.
And how far are you from Reno, Tahoe?
Well, actually, Virginia City, the old town of Virginia City, is only about 45 minutes up the mountain from downtown Reno, and my house is only 24 minutes from the Reno airport. I looked for years for this house because it snows out there. The weather gets pretty bad, and I needed to be able to get to the airport and hurry back in those days to fly everywhere that we were flying, and so that's how I ended up in Virginia City. But what really helped me there was we have up in those mountains in the Virginia range what is arguably the largest herd of wild horses on private land in the United States. And I happened to be visiting a friend up there, and I saw these wild horses, and I thought, if they can be wild and free up there, maybe I can too. And that's why I moved there, and I've been there ever since.
Tell me about your Let 'Em Run Foundation.
In 2003, once I moved to the Virginia City area up in the Virginia Range Mountains, which sit across, Reno sits in a deep valley called the Truckee Meadows, and on the western side are the Sierras, and on the eastern side is a smaller mountain range called the Virginia Range, and that's where Virginia City is, and that's where this herd of wild horses is. I was only there for a little while before I realized that these horses were in terrible trouble. They were getting on the roads where they were a danger to themselves and to the motorists, and these particular wild horses in that area are one of the few herds of wild horses not on Indian land that are not controlled by the Bureau of Land Management. They were controlled by the state of Nevada, which had neither the money nor the manpower nor the interest in taking care of them. And so I've spent most of the last, since about 2003, just trying to do that. And we've got a group that came up from California that worked with, I worked with the industrial park there. It's the biggest industrial park in the world. It's on Route 80, just outside of Reno. And I worked with them for years to convince them that if they had wild horses on this industrial park, that big businesses would come and be attracted to them, because I had read in, I think it was Atlantic Monthly, I read that there are 3 reasons why international businesses move their headquarters and their warehouses. One of them, and I can't remember all 3, but the first one was whorehouses, brothels, and there was a brothel. We have brothels in Nevada, so the famous Mustang Ranch was on that property, and then proximity to wild animals. And so I just for years went over and talked to the people that owned the and ran that big industrial park, Tahoe Reno Industrial. And it so happened that the broker for that park was a man named Lance Gilman. And Lance Gilman had been an A&R guy before in L.A., and he knew me. They wouldn't talk to any of the horse advocates up there. The horse advocates had totally turned them off. But because I knew Lance, I was able to go. And between Lance and his girlfriend at the time, who was the famous madam of the Mustang Ranch, Susan Austin, we talked that industrial park into allowing those horses to be there in perpetuity. And now other groups have come from California, and they're doing birth control and stuff that I had to really talk to them for a long time. I said, Lance, at some point you're going to have to birth control these horses, or they'll get away from you. The herd will get too big. And when we finally found a type of birth control that can be stopped after about 3 to 6 years, and the horses can then have they can breed again, have babies again. So it's not a permanent thing. It can be if it's mismanaged, but that's what they're doing now. And a group called American Wild Horse is doing that on the industrial park, and that herd is safe for the first time in ever.
And if you want to know more, just go to Lacy's website at lacyjdalton.org, and there's a link at the top of the homepage that says Let 'em Run Foundation.
Look at you. How do you know all this?
You told a beautiful story before we feature music from Lacy J. Dalton. Tell that story. You talked about arriving in Virginia City. You were having tea with a friend, and you were introduced to these wild horses for the first time, right?
It was, I played many, many weeks a year up in Lake Tahoe and Reno in the casinos, and I developed friendships with the people who were the crews there, the sound guys and the lighting guys. And I had a friend up there named Elaine Stevens who had a beautiful little Victorian house on E Street, and you could look out off her porch and see 7 counties. It's beautiful there because Virginia City's on the top of a mountain. And we were having tea one night, and just about sunset, I heard a sound. She had candles lit and had a big pot of tea, and we were going to have this tea. And I heard this noise outside, and I said, Elaine, what am I hearing? And I will never forget that moment, because she put her finger up there and she said, listen, there's a horse coming. And I walked outside on her little front porch, and here was a little herd of 4 or 5 wild horses walking up E Street right in the middle of town in Virginia City. And that's when I said, those guys are wild and free here. This is a place. I knew right then I would move there, and I've lived there ever since.
You found your home. Well, let's go from a pot of tea to a pot of black coffee, 1989. What do you think?
What a great song. I have this. Well, you probably know Even Stevens.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Even Stevens and Hillary Cantor wrote that song, And they showed it to me, and I'll never forget the first thing I said was, "Oh, that sounds like such a great song for Roseanne Cash." And he said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "This is a great song for you." And I'm so glad
me too.
that I did the song, because it, of course, it went all over the world, and it was a #1 record in a lot of countries, even like South Africa and a lot of places. It was a dance. There was a dance to it.
Yeah,
and so it was a #1 dance hit in all these countries all over the world, and it's been a great record for me.
Perfect morning radio song. So that's
totally.
another reason it got so much airplay, is morning radio guys still play it. And we're going to do it right now with Lacy J. Dalton on Coffee, Country, and Cody. You're listening worldwide on WSM Radio, watching on Circle Television.
Black coffee till morning, toast is burning, and the rain keeps pouring. That feeling I'm losing you. Black coffee.
Lacy J. Dalton is in studio on her way to the Grand Ole Opry tonight, just a few hours, and then she's going to Columbia tomorrow to Homestead Hall. And then you're back at the Opry, but this time this is Sunday, to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Josie Awards. And you just celebrated a platinum celebration with Willie Nelson.
Oh, that was so
from
cool.
1985. Yeah. Slow Moving Outlaw was on that album.
Slow Moving Outlaw.
Duets project, right?
It was, and it had the coolest people on there. It had George Jones and Julio Iglesias, and it had Carlos Santana. Leon Russell. I mean, there were unbelievable people on that record.
And Lacy J. Dalton.
And Lacy J. Dalton. And I was remarking that it was really neat to be the lone woman on that project, because back then that stuff didn't happen as often for women as it appears to happen now. It seems like there are a lot of women selling tickets and filling seats in auditoriums and having big hits on the radio, and we kind of fought for a lot of the freedoms that I think that the women have now in country music. A lot of women are producing themselves now.
Yeah.
The only one I knew back then who actually produced her own records was Gail Davies. Do you remember Gail?
Oh, yeah. She still comes to the Opry from time to time. And just
what
holds
a voice.
court, let me tell you. If you know how to entertain, you can watch Gail Davies. She gets it done still. Well, I'd love for you to play 16th Avenue. Tom Schuyler's, he's a songwriter, Hall of Famer, and how did you wind up with it? Because it's the theme of this city.
Are you sure you want to know this whole story?
I sure do.
I have to. One of us, even Stevens or one of us is senile. But this is the way I remember it. He said, "I don't remember that." And I said, "Well, you might not remember a lot." And neither do I. And I know I don't. So I could be wrong. But it seemed that there was a young carpenter who worked in Even Stevens' studio, Evergreen Studios. And while he was working there, he showed a song that he'd written to Even Stevens. And that song was called 16th Avenue. And Even took that song to Billy Sherrill for me. And Billy, I remember walking into his office, and I remember him in his nasal voice, "I've got this song here for somebody, Lacy." I said, "Well, I hope he played it for me." I said, "Well, I hope it's for me." And he said, "Go for it." And so we did 16th Avenue, and I'm so grateful that I got to be the person who got to sing this song at that time when 16th Avenue really was the place where you came to make it or break it in Nashville.
And that carpenter was Tom Schuyler?
That carpenter was Tom Schuyler.
Wow.
Who lived that song. He became an artist right after that with Fred Knobloch and Tommy Overstreet.
Schuyler, Knobloch, and Overstreet.
Oh, SKO, and they had a bunch of hits. Then he became, I believe, the president of RCA Records. I think he was VP and then he was president. Then he became the president of the International Songwriters Association. And then he got inducted into the International Songwriters. And he is not even in Nashville. He's on some island off the southern coast. I remember Billy Sherrill used to say, "One of these days," in his nasal voice, "one of these days I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to have a little sign that says Nashville on my boat. And people are going to point at us and say, "Where's that?" That never happened. He stayed here until the bitter end.
Lacy J. Dalton.
What a great producer, and I'm so grateful for this song. Here it is, 16th Avenue.
1, 2, 3.
Dalton. And time stood still for just a little bit there as she sang 16th Avenue.
What a beautiful thing to say.
Thank you for coming to see us. It's been too long. Let's not make it so long next time.
I am so pleased to be here. Thanks so much. It's been so fun this morning.
And we'll see you at the Opry, down at Homestead Hall, and then back at the Opry House for your well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Award from the Josie Awards on Sunday.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
and my partner, Eddie Dale, here. He'll be with me the entire time.
All right. Lacy J. Dalton on Coffee, Country, and Cody. That's black coffee, by the way.
Thanks for listening to the Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a 5-star review. This podcast was produced through the facilities of WSM Radio in Nashville, Tennessee. The hosts of Coffee, Country, and Cody are Bill Cody, Charlie Matos, and Kelly Sutton. Producer, Eric Markham. WSM General Manager and Director of Content and Programming, J. Patrick Tennell. Copyright 2022, Opry Entertainment Group Holdings, LLC.